I am a killer. No, not me. I'm talking about the Netflix series I Am a Killer. I Am a Killer conducts exclusive interviews with death row inmates who are in the maximum security prisons across the US after confessing to capital murder. So they're all murderers, they all kill people, and then they are interviewed in the show. Okay, they give first-hand accounts of their crimes, explain what their motivations were, and they reflect on their actions after spending a considerable time behind bars. So, what is this show about? Should we be feeling sorry for these people, or should we even be listening to their stories? I will talk about that in this video. So the United States, as you probably already know, does have a very high murder rate. In 2020, the murder rate rose sharply by nearly 30%. Assaults increased as well, with the rate of offences rising by more than 10%. More than 75% of murders in 2020 were committed with a firearm, reaching a new high point. That is, of course, really alarming and tragic, but at the same time, that is also the reason why shows like I Am a Killer are so popular, because people are really intrigued to learn more about these cases, what drives a person to take another person's life, why do people commit murder. So in each episode, a murderer who is serving a life sentence or who is on death row is interviewed at the beginning of the show. This is the opportunity for the murderer, for the person who is behind bars due to homicide. It is their chance to give their narrative, their story. And usually what happens is they start talking about the background, where they were born, what type of life they had, if they suffered abuse or they suffered other mental illnesses. It gives them that opportunity to talk about themselves, and then eventually they talk about the day they carried out their murder. So I suppose this is the opportunity for the viewer to make up their mind about the murderer. Do you believe in what they are saying? Do you feel sorry for them, or do you not feel sorry for them? So this is the opportunity that the viewer gets to watch and listen to the murderer and to make up their mind about him or her. Soon after this, the episode shifts onto the account of the police officer, who is the first one at the scene of the murder, and it is their opportunity to tell their side of the story, what they saw, what they witnessed at the scene of the crime. So here is where it gets interesting, because you most likely will listen to two differing accounts, and this is an opportunity for you as a viewer to start building a clearer picture in your head of actually what happened during that fateful night or that fateful day. And then it's the turn of the family members of the victim or the family members of the murderer, to give their points of view about what they think happened. This is where, it can get emotional, obviously, especially from the family members and the friends of the victims, when they talk about the person who they loved who passed away. It can get emotional, and usually they don't. Of course, they do not usually have a very good opinion of the murderer. So from a viewer's perspective, things start becoming a lot more clearer. In your mind, you start drawing a really clear picture of what may have happened and what type of people the murderer and the victim were. The other really interesting thing that happens in each episode is when they take the initial interview, the recording of the initial interview with the murderer, and they replay it in front of the family members, and then they get the opportunity to respond to what the convicted murderer is saying and whether they agree with it or not. Most of the time, obviously, they have a completely different view, and they don't hold back on certain episodes. I have noticed when they have really strong emotions about, obviously they will they do convey those emotions at that point and say what they think about what the murderer is saying. Finally, the show then goes back for a second interview, I think a final interview with the murderer, who is behind bars, who is in his cell, behind the screen, and they then replay what they've heard from the family members and officers and some other things that don't match up with the initial interview of what the murderer initially told them. Then they play that to the murderer, and then they give him or her the opportunity to respond to that, which I also find very interesting. It's really interesting to see the demeanor, the body language of the murderer and how he or she responds. It will, it tells you a lot about them. Usually by this time, the viewer, when I watched the show, at that point, I've pretty much made up my mind about what I think. It's a really interesting show because this is real. It's not Hollywood. These are real stories, real people who have lost loved ones. That's an actual murderer you're looking at and listening to. It brings it all home and makes you realize, wow, this actually goes on, and it is very interesting and intriguing, to be honest. I'm not sure if the show was controversial when it first came out because it allows the murderers to speak at length about what happened from their point of view. But for me personally, I think the program does a really good job. It allows all the other people to respond to what the murderer has said behind bars in prison quite extensively as well, and give their point of view, as well as the lawyers involved and the police officers involved. They all get to have their say. So it's not as if it is only coming from the murderer's point of view. The show does a very good job making sure the viewer understands everyone's perspective and understands the facts of what happened. That's why they bring in the lawyers and the police officers and give you the official records of what was seen, what was written, what was well documented. There are 3 seasons of this show, with the latest season, season 3, coming out, I believe it was last week. So if you are into this sort of dark, morbid sort of shows like I am, go right ahead and watch it. You'll probably enjoy it and have a good time. Alright everybody, tell us what you think. Leave your comments below. Have you seen the show? What is your opinion? And what do you think about this video? And let me know what shows you want me to talk about next. And don't forget to like, subscribe and share. And see you next time. Bye bye.